Hello, everybody. Welcome to part two. Let's get started. I finally enrolled into EMT school. So I walk through those doors, I go through the curtain, and what laid in front of me was something that I didn't think I was ever prepared for. And when I came to it, it was more difficult than I ever imagined. So I did it. I enrolled. So I got my schedule, and it was set for the next 3 months. So I had to balance work and school with almost no room for error. On orientation day, reality hit me really hard. Most of the students I already had some kind of background um, knowledge on EMS or medicine. Some had gone through cadet programs, others had taken nursing electives, and a few had parents working in EMS. Then there was me, walking in with almost no medical knowledge at all. I felt completely out of place. The nerves hit me in a way I had never experienced before. I questioned whether I belonged there, but strangely enough, I enjoyed that feeling. It was terrifying, but it also meant I was stepping into something that challenged me. And for the first time in a long time, I was doing something that genuinely scared me. Thankfully, the instructors broke everything down in small digestible pieces. Instead of throwing us into chaos, they taught us the sequence of what needs to happen when you arrive on scene. That's when something clicked for me. I realized that EMS isn't about trying to be a hero or making things up as you go. It's about trusting your training, following a process, and staying disciplined under pressure. It reminds me of following a recipe. Skip a step, rush ahead, or improvise at the wrong time, and the outcome can fall apart. But if you trust the process and stick to the fundamentals, everything starts to come together. That lesson stayed with me in EMS, but also in my life. Maybe my boss wasn't wrong for being so hard on me. Well, the thing that made EMT school manageable wasn't that I suddenly became smarter than everyone else or smarter in general. It was realizing that despite of everyone else's experience or advantage over me, we were all equally terrified. After every lecture, we'd spend hours learning the equipment and practicing the basic skills we'd eventually be tested on. In the middle of every week, we'd jump on Zoom study sessions, helping each other to prepare for Friday's quizzes and deadline skills exams. The skills exams were unlike anything I had ever experienced. You had to perform every step in exactly the same sequence we learned on paper, while saying it out loud, almost word for word, in front of the instructor who had spent years working as a firefighter and paramedic. I had never studied like that before. Honestly, I had barely ever studied in my whole entire life. With the help of new friends from class, my incredible wife at home, and more late nights than I can ever count, I made it to my first skills exam. I remember it like it was yesterday. The skills exam was on replacing an oxygen regulator. I made it all the way through the sequences perfectly until the very last step, and then I froze. The instructor looked at me and asked me, "Do you know what you did wrong?" There were so many equations, and I kept replaying the whole scenario in my head, and I froze. My brain went completely blank, and this had never happened to me before. So I started second guessing myself, and before I can even answer or say anything, he looked at me and said, "You will never be an EMT. You're wasting my time." For a second, I was in complete shock. It shook me. I turned into a ghost. I was white. So I corrected my mistake really quickly. But as I was correcting my mistake, something inside me changed. I remember thinking, wait a minute. I'm 30 years old. I don't have to accept that someone else is trying to decide my future for me. So I asked him, "Are you saying you're kicking me out of the program?" He replied, "You should just quit now and cut your losses." That's when I looked at him straight in the eyes and said, "I'm going to stay. I'm going to mess up. And I'm going to keep wasting everyone else's time until I pass or until you get security to drag me out of here. Otherwise, save your comments for someone who's weaker, someone who is going to give up. I've been through too much to quit now." So from that point forward, did things get easier for me? Not even close. They became even harder and harder as the days and hours went by. Every week, the expectations grew even bigger and bigger. Every week, another quiz, another skills exam, another opportunity to fail. And in that storm of chaos and stress, something very incredible happened that I was not expecting at all. The harder things became, the closer our class grew together. Our weekly study sessions became traditions. Every past exam became a celebration because we all knew what it took to earn it. Then came for our fire rides and clinical rotations. For the first time, we weren't practicing on mannequins anymore. We were standing beside real patients on some of the worst days of their lives. That's when EMT school stopped feeling like school and became a reality. After that, a few classmates were indecisive about whether they should stay in class or not, and a few dropped out. But the rest of us, we grew even closer. I never expected to become so emotionally vulnerable with people I had only known for just a few months. There were nights where we cried together, encouraged one another, and reminded each other of why we started in the first place. Some instructors, however, were still worried about me, and with good reason. They believed I had memorized the steps without understanding the reasoning behind them. And it was true. But during those moments, I prayed more during those 3 months than I ever had in my whole entire life. The schedule, the stress, the finances, it all started catching up to me. But quitting was never an option. Eventually, we reached the final skills exam. By then, I was barely afloat financially. Between taking time off work, paying for gas, and everything else, I was hanging on by a thread. Then, during lunch on the final day, my phone rang. It was my boss, my employer. Well, by the end of that conversation, I no longer had a job with them. And so I walked back into my final skills exam, trying to pretend everything was okay, but I couldn't keep my composure. The instructor noticed immediately. He asked, "What's wrong?" I told him everything. He paused and looked at me. He looked me straight in the eyes, looked right into my soul and said, if we have to stay here until the moon comes up, we will. But you're not quitting on me now. Go in there and make it happen for your future and for your family and for everything else you've tried so hard that you've worked so hard on." In that moment, I realized something. Sometimes the people who push us the hardest aren't trying to break us. They're trying to prepare us for the day when life hits us all at once. And quitting is simply not an option. So, did I make it? Did we make it? Against all odds, yes. Out of all the classes that the instructor had ever taught, we were one of the largest to have passed altogether. Only 3 students dropped out during that semester. The rest of us crossed the finish line together, hold hand in hand. Looking back at this picture, I don't see a I don't just see a graduation class. I see sleepless nights, self-doubt, late night study sessions, tears, laughter, mentors who refused to let us quit, and strangers who became family. Every single Every single person in this photo has a story. Some came with years of experience, others, like me, walked in knowing almost nothing. But by the end, those differences didn't matter anymore. We weren't competing against each other, we were carrying each other. When I look at this picture today, I don't see the man who thought he didn't belong on orientation day. I see the man who refused to quit. And that's the lesson EMT school gave me. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's deciding that your purpose is greater than your fear.